Welcome to episode number 56. I'm CJ Wellerman. Thank you for joining us. In this week's episode, we reveal how the Iranian government is persecuting Ahwazi Arabs in their ancestral homeland. But first, a quick reminder to click on the subscribe button below so you never miss a single episode. Now let's get into it. Most people have never heard of the Ahwazi people, which is why they're often called the Forgotten Arabs of Iran. In fact, most people have never heard of the country Arabistan, which existed as an autonomous state straddling Iraq and Iran at the top of the Persian Gulf until as recently as 1914. The British government, which redrew the Middle East after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, had assured the Ahwazi Arabs total autonomy. But then later abandoned its commitments at roughly the same time it was discovered the Ahwazis were standing on top of the world's third largest oil reserves. To make a long story short, Britain lost interest in the region, and Persia, or what is Iran today, wanted Arabistan's oil for itself. So in 1925, Iranian forces moved to occupy the territory, wiping the name Arabistan from the map before renaming the territory Khuzestan and making the city of Ahwaz its capital. Iran then went ahead with its plan to ethnically cleanse the region by offering Persians cash incentives to move to Ahwaz and buy property and start businesses there. Today, 90% of Iran's oil wealth comes from this territory. But this revenue is not shared with the Ahwazi Arabs, who live as an occupied people in squalid and impoverished conditions. The Iranian regime denies them even their most basic human rights, such as clean drinking water, sewage, electricity, healthcare, and education.
هسه هاي هلا طلعت هيك عندهم عيون نفط، الدولة هتمشي بيها، الزروع تمشي بيها، تسوي ستيتي. كان الوادم هلا يقول مطيها بيام هاي الرايات، يقول مطيها ملايين. هسه احنا ما نريد احنا من ملايينهم، احنا نريد السلامة ونريد ان هلبة مي تكسفيني. احنا ليش بالمثل هنا عاقطين لا مثل يستعلون بينا بالويلة، لا يستعلون بينا مثل بسكة، ليش احنا واحنا طلعنا زبادح للإيران؟
So let's go over this again. Ahwazi Arabs live in abject poverty despite having rightful claims to 90% of Iran's oil wealth, 65% of its gas, and 35% of its water supply. In other words, the Iranian regime has gotten insanely rich by displacing, starving, and disappearing the territory's indigenous population. This is the worst kind of colonial resource extraction and theft. But beyond this economic injustice, the Ahwazis are subjected to a wide range of cruelties and discrimination at the hands of the Iranian state. They are banned from speaking the Arab language. They are not only denied equal access to education, employment, housing, and healthcare, but also subjected to arbitrary arrests, torture, public execution, and forced disappearance. Taken together, these actions constitute the ethnic cleansing of Arabs in Iran, an effort that's helped along by Iranian state television, which weaponizes hateful anti-Arab propaganda to demonize the Ahwazi people.
میشه مثلا چند تاشو بگی؟ چون عرب زبان‌های ما در خوزستان
عرب زبان نیستیم، ما عرب هستیم.
زنان ایرانیه. عرب زبان یک چیزی رو بگم، به خدا افتخار نداره شما به عربی صحبت کنید، چون نیاکان شما مورد تجاوز همین اعراب قرار گرفتن که این زبان عربی رو به شما تحمیل کنید.
ما ایرانی هستیم. عرب باید از این مملکت خارج.
This racist and dehumanizing language contributes towards the rising violence against Ahwazi Arabs. Watch this Iranian police officer abuse an Ahwazi motorist during a routine traffic stop last week. Needless to say, the Ahwazi people have had enough. Last week, Ahwazi protesters set fire to billboards evangelizing the virtues of the Ayatollahs Khamenei and Khomeini in Bestian City. But these protests come with huge risks because they are almost always met with violence from Iranian forces, like this crackdown against them on June 4. The Iranian regime has also responded by cutting off the internet and electricity to Ahwazi neighborhoods, while also moving in tanks and other heavy military equipment into the region, along with Iranian shock troops. But this has not deterred the courageous and defiant Ahwazi people, who continue their pleas for justice and equality like they did here in Abadan on June 1st. These protests have now gone global, with Ahwazi expatriates and other non-Persian minorities holding similar protests in London and Berlin over the weekend, to raise awareness about the victimization their family members endure under Iranian occupation and apartheid. But these protests also raise fresh fears the Ahwazis will soon be subjected to yet another violent crackdown by Iranian forces, who fired on protesters in the Ahwaz capital last week. You will hear protesters yelling, "Please don't shoot." The Iranian regime has also used ISIS-style public executions to deter and intimidate the Ahwazi people into silence. Ultimately, the story of the Ahwazi people is a story of betrayal, occupation and subjugation at the hands of a regime that arrests and executes them for flying the Ahwazi flag or giving their children Sunni Muslim names. Despite their homeland being one of the wealthiest on the planet, they live as third-class citizens in total deprivation, poverty and humiliation. Worse, their persecution is taking place in almost total silence, which is why they're often called the forgotten Arabs of Iran. And as viewers of this program know all too well, we support the liberation and self-determination of all occupied peoples. The plight of the Ahwazi Arabs is no different to the cruelties inflicted upon Palestinians by Israeli occupation forces, Kashmiri Muslims by Indian occupation forces, and Uyghur Muslims by Chinese occupation forces. So let's help give the Ahwazi Arabs their voice. Anyway, that's my time for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to this channel and help spread the word with your friends and family on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And we kindly ask you please support this endeavor by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWellerman. We can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do. But for now, good morning, good day, good night, wherever you are, and stay blessed.